The city of Abuja breathes at dawn. Golden light crawls across the rooftops of a quiet, affluent neighborhood, settling on a two-story colonial home surrounded by bougainvillea. The house is beautiful. The house is a lie. Inside, Adiz moves through the kitchen with the practiced grace of a woman who has learned to occupy space carefully, not too much, not too little. She is 41, lean, dark-skinned, with the kind of eyes that have witnessed too many mornings just like this one. She sets a breakfast table for two. Eggs. Toast. Orange juice. A single orchid in a glass vase. Everything arranged with precision, as if order might substitute for love. Her husband, Chukwemeka, Emeka to the world, descends the staircase in a tailored suit. He is 45, broad-shouldered, the kind of man who fills a room without effort. He glances at the table. He glances at his wife. No smile. No greeting. He lifts the juice, drinks half, sets it down, and adjusts his cufflinks in the hallway mirror. His reflection does not look at hers. The silence between them is not the silence of peace. It is the silence of a verdict that has already been rendered and never appealed. Adiz watches his back as he moves toward the door. Her hand rests briefly on her own abdomen, a gesture so small it could almost be imagined, then falls away. She has made this gesture for 10 years. Each time, it means something different. Today, it means she already knows. Emeka pauses at the door. He does not turn around. His jaw tightens almost imperceptibly, as if wrestling with something he has rehearsed. Then he opens the door and walks into the morning without it. Behind him, the orchid trembles in the draft. Adiz remains standing in the kitchen, perfectly still, until the sound of his car engine fades entirely. Only then does she allow her shoulders to fall. She clears the untouched eggs from his side of the table. She does not cry. She stopped crying in the third year. Across the city, in a newer development near the expressway, another breakfast table is being set. But this table has noise. Laughter. Movement. The clink of cheap cutlery against colored plastic plates. Ngozi is 29, 10 years younger than Adiz, round-faced and luminous, 7 months pregnant and moving through her rented bungalow with the energy of someone who believes she has won something. The house is smaller than Emeka's marital home, but it is stuffed with new furniture still bearing price tags, gifts from a man who buys devotion in installments. Emeka's second car, a silver Camry registered under a company name, is parked outside. He sits at Ngozi's table in a different version of himself. The cufflinks are the same, but his jaw is relaxed. He touches her belly with a reverence he has never once extended to Adiz. He laughs at something she mimes. They do not need words in this house, not yet, because everything is still new enough to feel like a promise. The neighbors on Ngozi Street know him as Oga Engineer. They do not know his surname. They do not know about the colonial house across the city. Ngozi knows, she has always known, but she has decided that knowledge and acceptance are different countries, and she has chosen to live in the second one. On the wall above their table hangs a framed ultrasound image. Emeka had it framed himself. He brought the frame on a Tuesday, unwrapped it slowly, and held it up against the wall in 3 different spots until Ngozi pointed to the one she liked best. He drove home to Adiz that evening with paint dust on his fingers and righteousness in his chest, the righteousness of a man who believes he is simply correcting a mistake nature made. The camera lingers on that ultrasound. Then it drifts to the window, where Emeka's silver car sits in morning light, its engine still ticking with the heat of a journey it has made many times before. The city knows before Adiz does. It always works this way. At the hair salon on Woods 2 where Adiz has gone every third Saturday for 6 years, the conversation shifts the moment she steps inside. 3 women are mid-sentence when the glass door opens. By the time it closes behind her, they have pivoted, seamlessly, professionally, to the price of tomatoes and the president's latest speech. They are her friends. This is what friendship looks like in cities built on gossip. Adiz sits in the styling chair and watches the women's reflections in the mirror. She is a perceptive woman. She has always been perceptive. She was perceptive when Emeka started keeping his phone face down. Perceptive when he stopped reaching for her in the dark. Perceptive when she found a receipt for furniture she did not order in a house she had never visited. But perception and confrontation are not the same muscle, and Adis has spent 10 years building only one of them. Kayameka, the salon owner, Adis' oldest friend, walks her hair with hands that are too careful today. Too gentle. The tenderness of someone managing a patient. Adis notices this too. She catches Kayameka's eye in the mirror. Kayameka holds the gaze for exactly 1 second longer than a woman with nothing to hide would. Then she reaches for a different comb. Adis' expression does not break. She turns her eyes to her own reflection and studies herself with the clinical detachment of someone assessing a stranger. She notes the fine lines at the corners of her eyes. The dignity in her jaw. The composure of a woman who has been preparing for this moment, in some quiet interior room of herself, for a very long time. When she leaves the salon 2 hours later, her hair is perfect. She tips Kayameka. She hugs her at the door. She walks to her car, sits in the driver's seat, and grips the steering wheel with both hands until her knuckles pale. Then she starts the engine and drives, not home, but forward, into traffic, into the noise of a city that already knows her shame and has decided to let her discover it alone. Adis has hired a private investigator for 11 days before this moment. His name is Obina, a compact, forgettable-looking man in his 50s who drives a beige Toyota and eats groundnuts from a paper bag while he waits. He is very good at waiting. He hands her a brown envelope on a Tuesday afternoon in the car park of a shopping mall. He does not look at her while he does it. He is paid to find things, not to witness what finding them costs. In her car, with the engine running and the air conditioning raising goosebumps on her arms, Adis opens the envelope. Photographs. The silver Camry. Ngozi's bungalow. A shot of Emeka and Ngozi entering a clinic together, her belly enormous, his hand at the small of her back. A copy of a marriage certificate, dated 8 months ago, obtained from a registry in a different state. A photograph of the framed ultrasound on the wall. Adis goes through each photograph with the methodical stillness of a surgeon. Her breathing does not change. Her face does not change. Only her eyes move, sharp, cataloging, recording. She reaches the last photograph. She studies it for a very long time. Then she places every photograph back in the envelope with the same care with which she once arranged breakfast tables. She calls no one. She cries for no one. She pulls out of the car park with a signal, checks her mirrors, and merges into traffic like a woman running a perfectly ordinary errand. But something behind her eyes has hardened into a shape it will not abandon. She is no longer waiting to discover the truth. She has it now. She is deciding what to do with it, and Adis, it becomes clear, is a woman who, once she decides, does not waver. She drives past the salon. Past the church they attend together every Sunday. Past the hospital where she spent years attending to her own body, following every prescription, every treatment, every indignity, all at Emeka's insistence that the problem was hers to fix. She parks in front of that hospital and stares at its facade for a very long time. It arrives with no warning, as disasters prefer to do. On a Thursday evening, Emeka is driving the silver Camry home from Ngozi's bungalow when his phone rings. The name on the screen is the clinic's. He answers. His foot lifts from the accelerator. The car slows in the middle of a moving lane. The vehicle behind him honks. He does not hear it. He makes a U-turn that is only barely legal. At the clinic, a young doctor with tired eyes meets him at the entrance. The conversation is wordless to the audience, we see only the doctor's face, and then Emeka's face receiving whatever the doctor's face is delivering. Emeka's composure collapses in stages. First the jaw. Then the shoulders. Then the hands, which reach out and find a wall that barely holds him. Ngozi has been rushed to the hospital an hour ago with a severe placental abruption. The baby, a boy, Emeka's first, as far as Emeka has ever believed, has been delivered by emergency cesarean. He is alive but critical. 2 pounds, 11 ounces. His lungs are performing the labor of a much bigger body. Ngozi is in surgery. She has lost a significant amount of blood. Emeka sits in a waiting room plastic chair with his elbows on his knees and his face in his hands. Around him, other families conduct their own private catastrophes. No one looks at him. He is alone in the particular way that men who have built secret lives are always alone, surrounded, and entirely without shelter. His phone shows 17 missed calls from Addis. He does not call back. He cannot locate the version of himself that knows how to make that call. At midnight, the surgeon finds him still in the chair. Ngozi has survived. The boy is in the NICU. He is fighting, the surgeon says, with the calibrated optimism of someone who has learned not to promise. Emeka nods. He thanks the doctor. He stands up. He straightens his jacket with the reflexive vanity of a man reasserting himself. But his hands are shaking, and both he and the camera can see it. She does not go to the hospital. She goes to a lawyer. Barrister Neko Okafor practices from a slim office above a pharmacy on Agiyaronsi Street. She is 60, no nonsense, with reading glasses on a beaded chain and a reputation for handling exactly the kind of case Addis has worked in carrying. She reviews the envelope's contents without expression. She asks 3 questions. She listens to 3 answers. Then she opens a drawer, produces a legal pad, and begins to write. Addis watches Barrister Okafor write and feels, for the first time in perhaps a decade, the specific relief of being believed without having to perform her suffering. There is no theater required in this office. Only facts. Addis has always been better with facts. But Addis has also come with something else. Before she called Barrister Okafor, she returned to the hospital, not the clinic where Ngozi lies recovering, but the fertility clinic where she spent 3 years of her marriage being investigated, prodded, and ultimately diagnosed. She has requested her complete medical records. She has them now, in a second envelope, which she passes across Barrister Okafor's desk with a steadiness that cost her everything she has. The records are detailed. They are also, read carefully, and in full, revelatory. Because buried inside the clinical language, amid the hormonal assays and the hysterosalpingography reports and the specialist referrals, is a notation from year 2 of her treatment. A notation that was never discussed with her directly. A notation that references a secondary evaluation that was requested, and results that were fired, and a conclusion that was quietly set aside. Addis has known about this notation for 6 days. She has spent those 6 days becoming very, very sure of what it means. Barrister Okafor reads it. She removes her glasses. She looks at Addis. Addis looks back. Between them, the truth occupies the room like a third party who has been waiting a long time for its invitation. The baby in the NICU is 11 days old when the DNA test is processed. Emeka requested it himself, the instinct of a man who has lived a double life so long that verification has become reflex. He swabbed his cheek with the confidence of someone expecting confirmation. He submitted the sample with his chest forward, because this child, this son, is the monument he built his betrayal upon. It was all for this. He told himself this every time he drove the silver Camry back across the city. Every time he sat across from Addis' silence at the breakfast table. Every time he signed a document with a name that wasn't his wife's. It was all for this boy. The results arrived by courier to his office. His secretary, a lawyer, incurious woman, places the envelope on his desk without comment. Emeka waits until she leaves. He opens it with a letter opener. He reads it once. He reads it again. His letter opener drops from his fingers and clatters against the marble floor. The boy is not his. The genetics are unambiguous. The report is 3 pages long, but the conclusion requires only 1 sentence and Emeka reads that sentence 4 times looking for a different meaning. There is none. Ngozi's child, the child for whom he dismantled his marriage, constructed a second life, endured the logistics of sustained deceit, is not his biological son. He sits at his desk for a very long time. His computer screen goes dark from inactivity. Outside his window, Abuja continues its relentless business, cars, generators, the percussion of a city that does not pause for private collapses. Inside this office, a man discovers that the trophy for which he sacrificed everything was awarded for the wrong race. He calls Ngozi. She does not answer. He calls again. He calls 11 times across the following 3 hours. On the 12th call, her phone is switched off. The medical records Addis handed Barrister Okafor have now been formally reviewed by a specialist, Dr. Folik Adeyemi, a reproductive endocrinologist with 30 years of practice and a particular talent for reading between clinical lines. She meets Addis in her consulting room and speaks plainly, as a woman of science who has learned to speak to women who have been lied to by both men and medicine. The notation in Addis' file references a semen analysis, one conducted in the second year of their fertility investigations, when both spouses were being evaluated simultaneously. The analysis identified a severe deficiency. Motility below 8%. Morphology abnormalities. A clinical picture that, reviewed honestly, pointed away from Addis and toward her husband as the primary source of the couple's difficulty conceiving. This result was apparently communicated to Emeka directly during a private consultation that Addis was not invited to attend, a scheduling anomaly that she did not question at the time because she trusted the process, and because she trusted her husband. Emeka received this information 10 years ago. He said nothing. Instead, he redirected the investigation entirely toward Addis. He coordinated her subsequent appointments. He sat beside her during consultations and nodded gravely as doctors discussed her hormone levels. He held her hand in waiting rooms. He watched her submit to treatment and procedures aimed at correcting a problem that was not primarily hers to correct. He then, years later, used her inability to conceive as the justification for acquiring a second wife, and when that second wife became pregnant by another man, he accepted the child as the proof of his own virility. Dr. Adeyemi's expression throughout this summary is the expression of someone describing a crime that has no clean legal category. Addis' expression is the expression of someone who already knew and needed only a credentialed voice to confirm it. She thanks the doctor. She shakes her hand. She leaves. Barrister Okafor has been busy. The bigamy filing is submitted on a Monday. By Wednesday, it has been reported in 2 online newspapers, neither of which was tipped by anyone in Addis' camp, which means the city's information ecosystem has its own sources, and Emeka's second life has been visible to more people than he ever calculated. The story spreads with the velocity particular to narratives involving a successful man, a wronged wife, and the specific cruelty of a decade of misdirected blame. By Thursday, Emeka's professional circle is aware. His business partners call and are not called back. His club membership receives an inquiry from Barrister Okafor's office requesting documentation relevant to joint accounts. His mother, a formidable 72-year-old woman from Anambra who calls herself Mama Emeka and who has, for 10 years, treated Addis with the restrained contempt of someone who blames the vessel for being empty, receives a visit. Addis delivers the medical records to Mama Emeka herself. She does not dramatize. She sets the folder on the woman's sitting room table, opens it to the relevant page, and points to the notation with one finger. She remains standing while Mama Emeka reads. She watches the older woman's face move through its calculations, shock, then resistance, then the slow, volcanic movement of a pride preparing to absorb an impact it cannot deflect. Mama Emeka looks up from the documents. For the first time in 10 years, she cannot find her usual architecture of blame. Her mouth opens. It closes. She looks at the documents again as if they might revise themselves. Addis closes the folder. She picks it up. She puts on her sunglasses. She leaves. The camera stays on Mama Emeka alone in her sitting room, the afternoon light falling hard across her face, and nothing in her expression having yet settled into a position she can defend. Emeka's office is dismantling itself around him, one professional relationship at a time. He has been denied entry to his own company boardroom for a special meeting called without him. His car, the main one, the one that sits in the driveway of the colonial house, has been blocked in by Barrister Okafor's asset preservation order. He stands on his own driveway at 7 in the morning in yesterday's suit and looks at the car he cannot move. A neighbor leaves for work across the street. Their eyes meet. The neighbor does not wave. He looks away with the particular efficiency of a man who has already chosen a side. Emeka goes back inside. The house is different now, subtly, profoundly different, in the way that spaces shift when their original premises are removed. Addis' things are still here, but Addis is not. She has moved to Kayameka's house for the interim. The orchid on the breakfast table is still alive. No one has watered it except her, and yet it persists. Emeka looks at it for a long moment. He sits at the breakfast table, her side, not his, and puts his face in his hands. He is not crying. He is doing something that precedes crying and comes after it, the numb arithmetic of a man counting what he has lost against what he thought he was gaining and arriving at a sum that does not balance. He built a second life to escape a shame he manufactured from someone else's innocence. He carried that shame, labeled it, attached it to a woman, displayed it to justify his choices, for 10 years. And now the shame has detached from her entirely and settled back onto its original owner with the precision of a boomerang and the weight of a decade. Ngozi has disappeared with her child. The boy who was never his. Emeka does not know where she has gone, and his phone, once a device of coordinated deception, has no number that reaches her. He is alone in the house he filled with the furniture of a marriage, at a table where a woman set 2 plates every morning for a man who was already leaving before he left. The orchid trembles slightly. There is no draft. The windows are closed. Some things, the camera suggests, simply respond to atmosphere. Outside, the city begins its day. Traffic builds on the expressway. Generators compete with birdsong. In a law office across town, papers are being signed. In a clinic somewhere, a 2-pound boy is growing. In Kayameka's house, a woman who was cold barren is drinking her coffee, reading the documents that will restore her name, and deciding, with great deliberateness, and zero performance, who she intends to be now that the truth has finally caught up to the lie that tried to define her.